Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times. Today we are here to discuss one of the newest horror anthologies, and that is Phobias.
It's coffee time.
Now, I wanted to talk specifically about this new release because it can be deceiving when it comes to the title. This is another movie that for whatever reason has chosen a title that might give people the wrong expectations on the movie. It does not mean that it's a bad movie, but when you go in with wrong expectations, sometimes you probably don't enjoy it as much as you hoped for because of those expectations that you had at the beginning. So today we're going to discuss the different stories, the movie, what I liked, what I didn't like. As always, spoiler free. If you're new here, please consider subscribing before you leave and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss any more coffee times. Phobias is an R-rated horror thriller that just released in March. We follow 5 dangerous patients suffering from extreme phobias at a government testing facility that are put to the ultimate test under the supervision of a crazed doctor and his quest to weaponize fear. In this story, we have 5 different stories following 5 different characters, and then we have one sixth story, if you may call it like that, which is basically what takes place at this facility and what is connecting all of the characters together. And I have to say, just from the intro, I was already really excited for this film because the intro has such good soundtrack and visuals, and it's kind of showing you all the different phobia names, and it just really puts you in the mood. Our first story concerns robophobia, which is the fear of robots, and we follow 2 brothers, and one of them keeps being beaten up by this gang. And we see how this brother is taken to the facility. So the movie is basically showing you one phobia, then we go to visit the patients at the facility, then we get told about another phobia, then we go back to the facility, and so on and so forth. The second phobia is PHOBIA, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, which is the fear of driving. And we follow this young woman that after breaking up with her boyfriend starts to drive in her car when something really traumatic happens to her. Then we have Ephobophobia, the fear of youth, which is basically my favorite story in this movie. This was my favorite one. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what happens in each story because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but if you've watched it, you know what I'm talking about. Our next one is Hopelophobia, which is the fear of guns, which is a really interesting topic to explore in a horror anthology. And the last one is Atelophobia, which is the fear of not doing something right. It's kind of like the fear of something not being good enough, so the fear of imperfection. Unlike other anthologies, for me, something that really made this one stand out was that they paid a lot more attention to the emotions of the characters, and I felt like I could connect with them a lot more. Even though they were 5 separate different stories, I felt like I got a connection with the characters right away, even though it's short stories, but they delivered that so well. I personally think that the idea of having the 5 different stories told and then connect them all together at the facility is a great idea. However, I thought that the short stories were way better executed than the scenes that we see at the facility. Those were a little bit, less interesting to me. Now let's talk about the word of the title, phobias. So I have the feeling that this movie is not really about phobias because it is more about a traumatic event that is happening to each individual in these 5 stories, and after what happened to them, then they probably develop this fear. However, a phobia can be extremely irrational, and it can be a phobia about something that hasn't even happened to you yet, like me, which I had dentophobia. I still have it, but I had dentophobia, which is fear of the dentist, before I even went to the dentist for the very first time. I was always very anxious. I had a panic attack the first time that I had to go. So I already had this phobia before a traumatic event happened at the dentist or anything like that. The thing is, the 5 different stories are so different from each other. They have really nothing to do with each other except that there was a traumatic event, something that happened to someone, and that created a fear or it developed even into a phobia. But even though I wanted to love the parts where we are in this lab and, you know, we are in this facility where they are, you know, performing experiments on these individuals, it sounds amazing, but for some reason it didn't really click for me. I didn't really see the need of those scenes, and for me, like I said, those are the weaker parts of the film. That being said, I really love that the way that these fears and traumatic events were explored did not relay in any kind of cliches or stigmas from these different type of phobias, and they really gave us horror. Like, it was gory at times, and there are fears that maybe, you know, some people can relate to. There are also kind of fears that are to a certain level relatable, like, you know, fear of technology, fear of guns, the fear of driving, maybe if you've had a traumatic accident or something like that. So I love that they went for fears that it's easier for us as humans to relate to. However, this same thing might make difficult sometimes for the horror elements to really come through, but I really enjoyed all the different stories, especially the third one was my absolute favorite. So this film was directed by 5 different directors. Each director had a short horror story, and it just worked so well. And like I said before, I think that they should have just left it without the scenes in the lab trying to combine these stories, because there was really no need to try to combine all of these different stories. It didn't work so well, at least not for me, but I really enjoyed to see these phobias, these fears being explored in such a dark way. The movie is also mostly kind of with a dark lighting, and I think that also adds a little bit more to the creepiness of, you know, these traumatic events that happen to these people. Sometimes it's not so much about the horror, but kind of like things that happen in real life that can be considered horrific. In the end, this was a cohesive and consistent in tone compilation of short horror stories, and I find myself really enjoying it. I only gave it a 3 out of 5. I think there was room for improvement. There were some things I would have maybe liked seen done in a different way, or like I said, the scenes in the lab didn't really click for me, but have no fear of checking this one out. If it was on your list, I still think that it is worth a watch. I have seen some really bad reviews and I don't really agree. I don't think this one is as bad as some people said, so just trust me and give it a chance. Let me know down below, you guys, if you have already seen this movie. I hope that you enjoyed this quick movie review, and before you leave, please remember to give it a big thumbs up for support, and I hope to see you all guys in the next coffee time. Bye!